Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Four Quarter Talk podcast with myself, Jack Brazil, and my co-host, as always, Josh Mazoke. So what's up?
Yo, what's up, man? I'm just grateful that Bull's back right now. You know, it was a bit of a break, wasn't too long, but then it just puts in perspective because obviously this time last year was when the NBA went into suspension.
Yeah,
and those were confusing times. You know, it was a long wait. That wait was dragging. You know.
yeah. If only Rudy Gobert hadn't touched all those microphones. He plays good defense on NBA players and on the league itself.
Down the whole league.
Yeah. But it's still a lot of confusion going on a year later. But at least we've got basketball to still talk about and keep us entertained. And there's been some news flying around the NBA recently, Josh, regarding a certain power forward that plays in Miami, Meyers Leonard. If you're not sure what happened last week, Meyers Leonard used anti-Semitic slur when being killed by a 13-year-old on Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, which he only received a $50,000 fine for. And the word in question that he used, I don't think anyone's heard it since probably World War II days.
Yeah, man, he got that from he went in his Hitler bag for that one.
Yeah, been reading Mein Kampf. Yeah. Apparently the NBA only thought it was worth $50,000, which is the same amount Kobe Bryant got fined for using homophobic.
Yeah, I did just want to put it in perspective here. I saw a tweet that was just the fine was, so it was a $50,000 fine.
Yeah,
and he has to go to like sensitivity training basically. And to put that in perspective, that's the same fine that Stephen Curry received for throwing his mouthpiece in the finals.
Wow.
The same that J.R. Smith got for untying someone else's laces on the free throw line. The same that Daryl Morey got for an automatic tweet that was posted by like a bot about James Harden. Obviously, there was Kobe Bryant's fine, as you just mentioned, and then Roy Hibbert and Nikola Jokic had to pay $75,000 for saying no homo. So, the precedent is definitely there for a bit more than that. And it is strange, though. I mean, I guess we do have to take into account as well that Adam Silver's Jewish himself. So I'm not sure if maybe. I mean, yeah, I guess we do have to leave it to the offended party to deem it. But I just think with the past year or the past, that bubble experience, and even right now with the campaign that's going on with Asians right now who are experiencing a lot of discrimination, you'd think that the NBA have shown that they're quite sensitive and supportive in these type of issues, and that they'll take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of hope this spells the end for Meyers Leonard's NBA career almost. Not to be too harsh, but this is the same man that stood for the national anthem while the rest of his teammates were taking a knee in response to the murder of George Floyd. I don't know why. I mean, if there was any player that you could set an example with, it'd be Meyers Leonard, who doesn't play anyway. Yeah,
it's not like the NBA it doesn't worsen your product and not
for sure.
Leonard out there not being able to get rebounds.
The hammer, as he calls himself. That just even sounds racist for some reason. That clip. This is the most
ripped. He's in that ripped soft category with DeAndre Ayton right now.
The clip that killed me was when LeBron shoulder checked him and then dunked, and it pans to Meyers Leonard's face, and you can only imagine what words are going through his head when
honestly, when I heard, because the first video I saw just said he said a slur, and I was thinking nah, there's no way he said. He said the N word with Jimmy Butler on his team.
Yeah,
there's absolutely no way. But,
it
is insane.
Let's move away from that though and get into the main topic of today's episode, and we're gonna give you 4 hot takes each going into the second half of the NBA season. Obviously, the first round of games were concluded last night, with the Bulls not doing too well against the Sixers, but we won't get into that. Josh, do you want to give us your first hot take? What do you think is going to happen over the next course of the second half of the season?
Yeah. So I like to. I mean, I'm not throwing anything out too crazy out there. So I like to consider them bold predictions. My first being that the great Pokusevski will end up being the best player in his draft class.
Jesus,
the potential is clearly there. Now I'm playing, but he's a sleeper. He's a
feel
sleeper.
like a toothpick.
Hey man, that's what they said about a certain Giannis Antetokounmpo once.
Oh, and they do have the same athletic ability as well. You're right. Yeah.
Well, he has more. He has more like skill at that age. To be fair, no, I just think he has really good instinct. But that's not my first bold prediction.
All right.
My first bold prediction is that, and it's the one in the thumbnail, is that firstly it's a 2-1. So Kyle Lowry will not finish this season as a Raptor, and the Raptors will not make the playoffs. So
wait, can I just ask? Are those two predictions dependent on each other? So if Kyle Lowry,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's a 2-1. It's
cool.
A 2-1. So there's been several reports on Lowry's status as a Raptor. One of the most glaring being that I think about a month ago. Well, starting from a couple of years ago, actually, but especially a month ago, he started to make it known that he was eyeing a return back to his hometown in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then a reporter, Ryan Russillo, reported that Kyle Lowry has been kind of telling everyone for around a month around the league that he's getting traded soon. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where it comes to the point where, a player doesn't match the timeline of the team around him. And obviously, I'm sure he's the greatest Raptor of all time, in my opinion, in many's opinion. And he'll be given the respect, obviously.
Yeah.
And it won't be ugly. He'll be sent somewhere where he has a chance to win. Obviously, that Philadelphia connection there.
No one will ever wear the number 7 for the Raptors again, either.
Yeah, and I think it would help both sides as well, because Kyle Lowry is currently on a expiring contract, which is one of the most, one of the best assets you could have in the league is an expiring contract, especially with a player that can help a winning team this season, and that can help just set up the Raptors for the future. And then more towards the Raptors missing the playoffs part of it is that Powell is also, he's emerging as a player that could draw attention from other teams, because I think his contract, his situation is pending as well, and he might demand a lot of money.
Yeah, and what better time to cash in on Norman Powell than right now? I mean, his stock is at an all-time high.
Absolutely. And then also just particularly with my playoff prediction is that, that 7 to 10 range in the East. I mean, there's been a lot of talk with us about the Eastern Conference being, not stacked, but tight in the fact that, they just have similar records across the board. But particularly that 7 to 10 range is, there's a lot of teams there that had slow starts, and, they've shown that they're about to get back to the level that they were expected to be at. And assuming that those moves do take place, obviously, that would leave the Raptors as one of those teams that are the odd man out.
Yeah, I think it's a tight one with the Raptors maybe not making the playoffs. I think they will end up having the quality to get there, because I do just think the quality of Nick Nurse and their years' experience will get them in there, even if they do deal Kyle Lowry. But regarding Kyle Lowry, he did just come out this past week saying that he would like to retire a Raptor, but did also hint even if that meant it was a one-day contract. So that's throwing a few mixed signals about for Raptors fans. On one hand, you could interpret that as he wants to stay for the rest of his career. But that last bit about the one-day contract kind of makes you think that he's got other plans for the rest of his career. And if that is in Philly, I'm sure that would be an excellent acquisition for the 76ers, because this is a man who knows what it takes to win a championship.
Or
And
potentially a team like the Clippers, or there's
yeah,
several teams that use the services.
I think anyone could use the services of Kyle Lowry. He's still a very quality NBA player. And especially adding him to a team like the Sixers or the Clippers, who are they kind of feel like they're one step away from a title. Definitely contenders, both of them. A piece like Kyle Lowry would be ideal, especially for two teams that kind of lack, maybe less so on the Sixers, but especially for the Clippers, they lack a ball handler and a playmaker at that point guard spot. So Kyle Lowry would be ideal.
Just a winning player that you can just insert into any situation.
Well, the Raptors maybe not making the playoffs leads me perfectly into my first hot take, Josh, and that is that the Washington Wizards will, in fact, make the playoffs. After their terrible start, on the 12th of February, they sat 6-17 after a loss to the New York Knicks, which was the worst in the East and the second worst in the league. A lot of doubters, and rightly so, were calling the Russell Westbrook trade an awful one, saying he had the worst contract in the NBA. Bradley Beal was being put in every trade rumor imaginable. I'm also guilty of this, trying my ways to try and get him to the Bulls. Didn't quite work, but now since then, they're 9-4 since. Scott Brooks kind of reshuffled the pack, said this isn't working, let's go with a different lineup, inserting Mo Wagner into the rotation. Garrison Matthews, who's been very solid for them. Rui Hachimura, who's turned into quite a good defender actually. And those wins include wins over the Celtics, the Trailblazers, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Nuggets twice. So since then, you can say that reshuffling has really, really helped the Wizards. I'm not sure what was said. Scott Brooks isn't deemed as to be one of the better coaches in the NBA by any means, but at least unlike some coaches, he adapts and he changes to benefit his team. I think you'll know who we're talking about if you listen to this podcast. I don't even need to say his name.
No. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, to put this into a bit more context, at the end of that run on February 12th, they sat with the worst defense in the league. But since, they allow just 110.3 points per 100 non-garbage time possessions. That sounds like a bit of a mouthful stat, but that basically means in crunch time and in meaningful minutes, they're giving up 110 points, which is tied 8th in the league in that time, with Miami and West leading Utah. So, two elite teams who we expect to see in the playoffs. Also, no team allows fewer shots at the rim per game, or forces team into more mid-range shots or floaters, which are the lowest efficiency shots, regarded as the lowest efficiency shots in the NBA this year. In these times, because obviously the three remain supreme. So their defense has really stepped up. When first half, for most of the first half of the season, it was historically bad, which is why Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook can now focus on being the players they are, and that's obviously two MVP candidate type players. And since then, they've both been kind of playing at that level, and that's been contributing to wins for the Washington Wizards. And I expect that to continue, and for them to make it to the playoffs, because the East is really, really tight right now, and it's not going to take a lot of wins to get into that eighth seed, I don't think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We've had an episode a couple episodes ago, where we talked about the Wizards, their uptick in play.
Yeah.
One thing so obviously you talked about the adjustment that was made, and almost a lot of their losing had to do with COVID and having a lot of players out. But I guess it was a blessing as well, is that it forced them to move to a lineup that better suited their top two players. But yeah, that's an interesting, that was really that's a key stat there about defending at the rim, because that is an issue that they definitely had. And an underrated part about this is that they, due to all of those postponed games, they have 30 games remaining still, which is the third most in the league, which gives them even more of a chance to gain traction and finish, higher up. and they only currently sit 1.5 games behind the 10th seed, which is that play-in range there. Actually, no, that's a little bit outdated. Actually, that was a couple of days ago, and I think they just grabbed a win.
Well,
and then
I can check for you now. Hold on.
then
I did also want to say with what you said about they have like the most games to be played. You might think that as you said, it gives them a chance to gain traction, no doubt, but it could also give them a chance to maybe fall off. But luckily for the Wizards, what they have going for them there,
I just think it came at the right time for them because obviously, if they had played those games, they would be playing those games.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But
injured several players. So.
Yeah, another benefit for the Wizards is that they have the most games remaining against teams that have losing records in the league. The league is quite balanced right now. 15 teams. 15 teams have a winning record and 15 teams have a losing record. And the Wizards have the most against those teams with the losing record going into the All-Star break. So on paper, that should mean those are easier games against easier opposition.
Does that pretty much just mean that they're playing the East a lot?
Yeah, pretty much. pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
the Wizards do actually look like a decent team this season, and we definitely thought they were going to go into tank mode following their awful start. But they've been presented with a unique opportunity with how tight the West is to actually be back in that playoff race.
Yeah, and if we look at that range as we were talking about, that 7 to 10, if we look at all those teams, they're probably the only team that has 2 stars.
Yeah.
So that definitely goes into it if they get into that play-in type situation.
They might even leapfrog us, which is scary to think.
Likely will.
Yeah. Let's move away from the Wizards though. Josh, what is your second hot take for the second half of the NBA season?
My second is that it's a Harden Nets one, and it's that the Nets will overtake the Sixers to clinch the first seed, and that will earn James Harden MVP honors.
Ooh. Okay, yeah. First half I was like, that's not a hot take, but then the second half of that's definitely a hot take.
Yeah, so Harden is on a tear, he's and it's in a way that's much different from what we're accustomed in these last few years of the Mike D'Antoni offense. He's not dazzling you with 40 point per game averages or anything like that, but his efficiency is much better. He's always been a great shooter, but it's not always translated to his actual percentage, and he is right now hovering around that 40%, as much of the Brooklyn Nets are. But I think obviously looking at it from a distance, because right around the time that they acquired Harden, KD was in the MVP race.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone collectively took him out of it because it was like they've got 3 All-Stars now. None of them will be in consideration. But what's ensued stints with, multiple injuries, they've lost Kyrie for a few games, they've constantly had KD out. And I think there's more to KD that we're not being told about.
Yeah.
I think because as I mentioned, my hesitance and my apprehension with KD was never that he wouldn't be the same player skillfully, or maybe not even athletically, but it was that a lot of these players, like a John Wall, like a DeMarcus Cousins, that get these Achilles injuries, they almost always manifest into whether it's re-injuring the Achilles or injuring other parts because of overcompensation, and that seemed to happen with KD because he's now dealing with a nagging hamstring injury, and they've already ruled him out for the rest of this week, and who knows how long it could linger on for. And that just gives Harden even more of an opportunity to kind of take the reins, because I've seen a lot of people say he's the best player in the league right now.
And they might be right.
Steam is picking off at that because he's putting those skills. He's always been highly skillful, but the way he plays hasn't always been great to watch. And I thought that, that was one of the things that I was looking forward to when he got traded to the Nets, is that he'd be able to just be in a role that made sense rather than, him carrying the whole offense. And he's made players around him. It was clear that he's always had the skill to do what he's doing, but it was kind of hyper exaggerated in the Rockets system. And now, he he's just playing beautiful basketball right now. It's balanced. He's not overdoing it with isolation play. He's making players better around him. He's solely taking that point guard role. And
Yeah,
then the Nets also have the second easiest remaining schedule in the league, so that gives them a chance. And then now, you're seeing players like Embiid and Simmons. They keep being out for different reasons. Obviously, it hasn't been mostly injury yet, but obviously we don't know how it can go. Embiid is getting to that point where he's starting to miss too many games as well.
yeah.
That might contribute to him falling out. So yeah, that's my case for
I
that.
think it's a testament to how great of a player James Harden actually is, to how well he's fit in and adapted at the Nets. There was a lot of question marks over whether or not he could take up the role he's taken when he moved there, but he's done it flawlessly with little transition period. Becoming that, the main playmaker in that team and cementing his role as the point guard, which has contributed to all these wins. And to do this without KD is even more impressive. I think that what's happened in Brooklyn is probably the Lakers and the Clippers' worst nightmare of what could have happened. All three fit seamlessly together. And it does. I don't see any team, especially in the East, that could probably beat this team in a 7-game series right now.
You can't use the super team argument against him, because if you actually look at his actual games that he's played with them, he probably played less than 5 games with KD.
Yeah.
Most of the games that he's played has been with at least 4 G League type players in the lineup.
Yeah.
Several. They've been,
and he's making them look really good as well. Like players like Landry Shamet and Bruce Brown, he's been really good of late. And now obviously they've acquired Blake Griffin, who surprisingly, fun fact, Blake Griffin does not have one single dunk this year.
He hasn't dunked in 2 years.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
2019.
I didn't watch the game last night. Was he playing? Did he play?
Nah, it was in street clothes. I think he's still injured. He's got a knee injury.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how Blake Griffin fits in there. Will he kind of be the stretch big man? He's kind of worked on that part of his game since he got to Detroit. And we've got to remember in Blake Griffin's first year in Detroit, he was all NBA. And he's only 31 years of age, so there's still a player in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, since the news broke with them acquiring, we haven't really gone into that, but I think he will definitely contribute to them. But I think we're overreacting. It's not.
It's not. People are saying, "Oh, they need Blake Griffin to beat LeBron," but he's not the Blake Griffin he once was.
I would make this type of comparison. I'd compare it more to, the Lakers acquiring JaVale McGee.
Yeah, or like DeMarcus Cousins, who was injured.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, just in terms of if they are healthy, the kind of role that he's playing, he's kind of more of a glue guy type role. I think his days of All NBA behind him, and
for sure,
he's ready to contribute in a role that is, low risk, high reward.
And this must be our ideal situation for Blake Griffin. He gets, I don't think he got all his money. I think he left 13 million behind, but it's still a heck of a lot of money. And now he gets to go and compete for a ring. So he must be over the moon, with this move.
Kind of fizzling out of the league whilst riding the Detroit Pistons bench.
Yeah. My first hot take was about a team making the playoffs, but my second hot take is going to be about a team missing the playoffs. And that's the Golden State Warriors. Currently sitting on a 4-game losing streak. Tough loss last night to the Clippers. Blowout loss. I think they were down like 36 at half. The Clippers getting redemption for being down 50 at the half against the Mavericks earlier on in the season. Taking out on Steph Curry and the Warriors. And a lot of their weaknesses are starting to get exposed. I said at the start of the season, I was kind of clown for this, so I want my damn respect a little bit. But I was saying that the Golden State Warriors, I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I didn't think they had enough. I didn't think Steph Curry's game translated to carrying a team the way a Westbrook or LeBron have shown in the past. And we're kind of seeing that, Steph Curry, of course, has been playing at an MVP level. And obviously, he won't be the MVP because of where his team sits. But, bar his stats, he can't do it all by himself. There's no secondary ball handler on that team. Maybe you could argue Draymond Green takes that role a little bit. But without Clay there, that fit with Draymond Green as the secondary ball handler and the primary playmaker isn't working as well. You know, when you're throwing those passes to Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins instead of Klay Thompson, they're not going to be converted as much into assists. And we've seen that so far. And, you know, they're really lacking depth, which is showing. You know, outside of Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, their wing depth is Kent Bazemore and I think Toscano Anderson, which is a far cry from those Golden State Warriors teams of the past. So I think they're just burning out a bit right now. You know, Steph Curry did you know, they rode Steph Curry's hot hand to a few wins earlier in the season, and they were in that hunt. But now, off this 4-game losing streak, I don't see them making it. They have the worst record against winning. I always have one voice break every episode, don't I? Flip say, I need to start drinking more water. They have the worst record against teams with a winning record in the NBA, and obviously they find themselves in the West. So, you know, which is where most of those teams are. So that doesn't bode well for the Warriors. I think a lot of signs are pointing them heading downwards. And this is what I kind of feared for the Warriors. Are they going to be in that limbo of trying to make the playoffs and not making it? And it looks like that's where they will be. Anything to add, Josh?
I'm going to have to induct another coach into the slander.
Not Steve Kerr, surely not.
Steve Kerr.
Isn't he like an eight-time NBA champion? Or something like that? With coaching and player?
Yeah, a bit of a Phil Jackson syndrome going over there, but... But I saw a tweet that I found quite funny. It was a Warriors fan tweeting out, the more you grow up, the more you understand why Michael Jordan punched Steve Kerr in the face. But I wouldn't go that far. But just observing, and this is not a new thing. This is going back to 2016. Just me observing things as a fan, right? Especially as a fan of a team in the Western Conference that, you know, I'd consider a rival to the Warriors for quite a while of that stretch, is that Steve Kerr, don't get me wrong, he brought them to a level that they weren't gonna achieve without, you know, a bit of a revolution to their offense. But he, you know, he's low key in that Budenholzer range of not adjusting. You know, I'm sure everyone just remembers, you know, us blowing a 3-1 lead and they just want to clown that, which is justified. But the reason we were even able to go in that, and if you go back and watch some games, you'll hear consistently commentary saying, you know, Steve Kerr is being outcoached right now by Billy Donovan, who's far from an elite coach. But there were just certain matchups that were getting put there. And if, you know, maybe if Clay doesn't go off for 11 threes, which will like forever, like I'll have a nightmare about that at least once a year. But, you know, he's had these miraculous performances to bail him out, and then he got outcoached by Ty Lue in the finals. Mm-hmm. And that is, you know, obviously LeBron played at a high level, but there were a lot of adjustments made that, Steve just doesn't really adjust too well. And the biggest example of that this year is that, you know, it was quite early on, because obviously last year we just automatically gave everyone on the Warriors a pass because there was just too many injuries. But this year, a critique of him was that it was pretty clear early on that you're not dealing with the same type of players that you've had, that they've grown accustomed to, that had high IQ and could deal with complex offenses. But he was still reluctant, and he would say, no, we're still doing this. And I don't think it's fair to call Curry not the type of player that can carry a team, because if you watch the games, Steve Kerr is not allowing him to. I think Curry is below. Just put in perspective, Curry is one of the players who are towards the bottom of the league in fourth quarter minutes, whilst Brad Wanamaker is near the top of the league in fourth quarter minutes who shares the backcourt with him at times. And I don't know, Brad, he's another player with his coach's nudes or something, Brad Wanamaker, because for some reason he just, he got all the minutes he could take, like, Steve, he didn't want, like, he continued to make Curry play off ball, which obviously is a big part of his game, but even when they didn't have Draymond, didn't allow him to, just take over and just wanted to carry on with those offenses that work very well when you have players like KD, Clay, Draymond taking off pressure. But
so you're saying he's playing like he's playing a 2016 Warriors system with players like Toscana Anderson and Brad Wanamaker in the lineup.
Exactly, and he's just not. Yeah, he's just expecting that those are still going to work because first at the first point it was the players around us didn't get they didn't get the plays. They were too complex for them. But then also you can do all this complex stuff, but if I'm a team, I'm just going to ignore the other players and I'm going to stay with them. So,
but do you think a coach has to go through a period of losing? Or a period of a tough time to learn how to adapt to that way? Because Steve Kerr, since he's been to the Warriors, has never really had a losing season. Obviously, last season was a losing season, but as we said, that's kind of a scratch. Do you think a coach needs that experience to be able to adapt?
But I think Kerr's had enough experience with just different instances where he'd think, all right, like, okay, this is interesting. Like, think back to maybe the start of this whole period, which was that 2019 finals, when Clay first went down, and then the rest of the games, Curry was just getting all types of defenses played on him, box and one, triple teams, and he's accustomed to being guarded from half court even more than ever before. With you can double off players like when it's Brad Wanamaker instead of Clay or Kevin Durant. But yeah, you'd think that Curry would be like, okay, coming into the season, he's gonna have a lot of pressure on him. We have to play a different type of way, and there are different type of coaches, and I don't blame him too much because there are different type of players and coaches. There's players and coaches that are floor raisers, and then there's ceiling raisers. And Kerr is in that range with Curry in their respective fields that, if you put Kerr on a team with great players, like a Phil Jackson, he can bring the most out of them. But then when you have this type of situation, he kind of just seems lost. So it's kind of like a mix of, everything that could go wrong went wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're having a tough time. Will Steve Kerr, will we see a time where Steve Kerr's job is in jeopardy at the Warriors? Or has his
right now?
Yeah. Well, I think his reputation is, what he's done, even though it might not be down to him mostly. Maybe it's probably mostly down to the players and the talent he's had. But I think a lot of that will shield him from any front office pressure.
The big thing, the breaking point was a lot of fans really mad yesterday because he decided to, I think it was for disciplinary purposes, but still, he decided to bench James Wiseman until the fourth quarter. Then in the fourth, he had
it's because he missed a COVID test, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he was still cleared to play. Yeah, and then he decided to not play until the fourth, and in the fourth he had 14 and 7.
But also, you could argue that's garbage time, and
no, but Wiseman is like shown in the he keeps getting better every game.
Yeah.
I feel bad because he kind of doesn't get the opportunity, and then he gets that, LaMelo's playing great, you're a bust type treatment when that's not the case.
No, for sure. Yeah, James Wiseman, I think Steve Kerr has to look at while they still want to be competitive in their present, James Wiseman is the future of this franchise. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green won't be around forever.
The thing is,
you got to develop your own guys as well as trying to win basketball games.
But it's not even a situation where it's one or the other. Wiseman is your best option at that position anyway. So it's not even like play him to help him develop. Like literally just play him because if you want to win, you have to, like, he's your best option anyway. So,
for sure. Yeah. But do you expect them to make the playoffs? It is so tight down there. You know, there's a lot of teams at the bottom of not at the bottom, but in that playoff range. You know, the Mavericks, who we'll talk about a little bit later.
Because if you look below them right now, the only teams below them are us, the Kings, the Pelicans, the Rockets, and the Timberwolves. The only team I can see rising, because we'll definitely start to tank. The Pelicans maybe, because they're trying to win, but remember the Warriors only have to be 10th, and then if you put them in a playoff, if you put them in a play-in situation, and you have Curry, anything
they'll probably be a favorite going into.
Can you imagine the Blazers working so hard to have a great season, and then they get to 7th, and then Steph Curry,
Suns, Damian Lillard once again.
David would just have to. I think he might reach his boiling point at that point.
He start having nightmares about Steph Curry if he doesn't already. I expect the Blazers to move kind of more.
Oh no, that was a joke.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the standings and they're like 6th, but
now they're quite clear of the Spurs. The Warriors, it's in jeopardy, man, and you gotta wonder how will Steph Curry react to that, because last night he did not look happy. He got too accustomed to playing with LeBron and all those All-Stars, and had to come back to Toscano. I keep throwing Toscano Anderson under the bus here, but
same with Brad Wanamaker. That's because that's the main thing I keep.
But
seeing.
The thing is, Toscano Anderson's actually not terrible, but Brad Wanamaker is. But Toscano Anderson's like a decent role player, but his name just sounds.
He's the one that had beef with who was it again? Who's the player that
Ronnie Magruder. Ronnie Magruder. And then Klay Thompson was like, battle with the randoms. Battle with the 2K generator.
Ronnie Magruder. People going crazy right now, man. The disrespect right now. Like when Tony Snow hit the game winner, they were like, "How you gonna get gamed by a 2K Brown shirt?"
by Mr. 000.
Oh, man.
How many minutes was it that he put up no stats? Was it like 26?
Wait, what?
I've not seen that picture on Twitter. It's like Tony.
Oh yeah. When he had like
didn't put one stat. Former ball as well. We employ all the NBA's best. All right, let's move away from the Warriors. Josh, what's your third hot take?
I'm looking at the other side of the table, and that is the Suns stealing clinching that top spot in the West. My biggest reason for that, obviously they're on a roll right now. 8-10 in their last 8-2 in the last 10.
Yep.
5-game winning streak.
Yep.
They're starting to mesh. We've talked about them before. They're having a lot of players that are, stepping up. Miles Bridges having a career year.
Jay Crowder.
Yeah. They're just absolutely, they're balling. They're on top. They're on top of things. And the teams around them, obviously, the Utah Jazz, they're rolling as well. Well, actually, they're 6-4 in their last 10, so they have started to slow down a little bit. Because I think they'd only had like four losses up to a certain point, and now they've lost 4 in just their last 10 alone, and are currently on lost 2 games.
Yeah, we were talking about them having like one of the better win percentages in NBA history a few weeks ago, weren't we? So they've taken quite a hit. Yeah,
and then just the teams around them, the Lakers around the Suns. The Lakers are, I think they're in cruise control type, because I think they're trying to be careful with the amount of load they're putting on LeBron, and with bringing along Anthony Davis too quickly as well, because they're thinking repeat. They're not thinking, I think LeBron is at the point where, like the All-Star game, he's ready to sit out of the MVP conversation. I don't think he's really motivated by that right now.
Yeah.
They just want to get this team healthy to the playoffs.
Yeah, and seeding is not going to mean a whole lot to the Lakers. They'll be the favorite going into any series to go into.
As you said before, as I said, I think last episode was episode before, last year was kind of an anomaly of type of the years LeBron has. Normally, he's just, as long as he has his home court, he's ready to go into any series. He goes into that extra gear when it comes playoff time.
Yep.
Ah,
0.30, man.
yes. So I think the Suns are that team that seem to have shown consistent that they're rising and only getting better, and they still have more potential with players like Aiton not realizing his full potential yet. But yeah, I saw a report about the Suns being a good center away from being a contender. And I'm thinking like,
Andre Drummond, he's right there.
no, I'm thinking you've drafted a center as your first pick,
Mm.
and he can still be better. Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason to yet. I'm a bit weary about teams trading for, like, contenders trading for Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
He's a bit of an empty stat type of
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
A lot of, someone said he was like he was just Eastern. Now, what was it? He was he's Hassan Whiteside. He's just Hassan Whiteside that went out with sound from iCarly. People are so rude, man. But
Is that his defining moment going out with Sam from iCarly? Oh, that was like peak 2013, man.
Yeah, that generated some disturbing memes. But
yeah. Poor Sam. That's what I'm gonna say.
I was about to say something sus, but no, not even sus in that way. Just but anyway,
sus in what way? What other way can you be sus?
No, I just mean kind of crazy to talk about on a sports podcast.
Okay.
Not like, yeah.
Hey, that doesn't stop. That doesn't stop us usually, but
yeah. There's a filter at some point.
Yeah.
But future employer might be listening to us.
Oh yeah, I gave Peter our link, so he might be listening.
Yeah.
Our university lecturer. Shout out to him.
He goes wilder than us, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they should tweak anything. No. I think they're on a good pace right now.
But I think the question is, when people are talking about getting a new center in, it's not the regular season, it's the playoffs, because obviously the Suns have been there for so long. It's hard to see how they would fare in that environment. Obviously, they've had a little bit of experience with the bubble run, with that 8-0 run. That they could use that as experience, but a proper playoff run with, who knows, possibly fans back in the stands is a lot different.
Yeah, but you have a 22-year-old first pick center.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying give up on him, but
it'd be damaging to even trade for a center that you're meaning to start, because that's just going to be damaging to his confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
At this stage. So right now, just keep rising. You've got a player in. You got a couple players there. Oh yeah, we talked about Meyers Leonard earlier. They decided to pay him over Jay Crowder, which will always confuse me.
The Heat, yeah.
That
Alrighty, all right. Might have a hidden agenda.
I think the election altered a lot of teams' decision making.
Yeah.
Gordon Hayward there, getting his max and all of that. But anyway, we'll move on. But
all Capitol Hill storming first team. Meyers Leonard shoehorn for power forward, and the rest of the team can build around him.
I mean, that might be the Jazz next move.
Yeah, you would fit them perfectly. You'd be a representation of the fans. Yeah.
Absolutely. But all right, so yeah, that's me, Suns.
Yeah,
Suns in that first spot.
Well, speaking of the Jazz, I've got a little bit of a hot take. It's not too hot. It's like lukewarm.
We're continuing the Jazz slander.
You had to, man. You had to.
3 straight episodes. We're going strong.
Let's see what we can get the streak up to, man. Let's see. But similarly to what we have been doing, it seems like a lot of other NBA media outlets have also been doing to the Jazz, kind of doubting them and questioning whether they can continue this hot form going into the second half of the season. And my hot take, let me get into my hot take first, is that the Jazz will fall out of that number 1 seed. I'm thinking into about the 3-4 range. I don't think they'll fall too far. because they're still a very quality team. But I just want to see how the Jazz are gonna deal with this media pressure. The Jazz have never really had this type of coverage since, you could almost say, the Stockton Malone days, when they were, going up against MJ's Bulls. And now that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell got picked last in the All-Star draft, and there was a lot of clowning for that, and LeBron saying we didn't play with the Jazz on 2K. It seems like there's a little rivalry going on between the Jazz and the rest of the NBA almost.
And the last time they had this much negative attention, they had some legal issues.
Oh, was it with that fan?
Oh no, I mean the last time a star player for the Jazz.
Okay. Let's not get into that. Fucking hell.
I just said, Bonnet, this is that
time. Yeah, but
go on.
Will they crack under that spotlight? Obviously, they've been shooting the three at an historic pace. Can they keep that up? That's another question they're going to be asked. I've got the stats here. They're shooting 42 threes a game on 40%, which is a historic rate. That means they're making almost 23s a game, which is insane. And, the Jazz a lot of times are beating teams off good defense and catching fire from three. That's a lot. That's when I watch the Jazz a lot of the times, how they're beating teams. So that means that a lot of their dependence is coming from that 3-point line. Obviously, as long as you employ Rudy Gobert, I feel like the defense will always be there. But a 3-point, it's always a kind of a uncontrollable variable, because teams go through hot periods and cold periods. And I do expect the Jazz to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. Although they have upheld that percentage for quite a long time, I do expect that to come down just a bit, and we'll see how that affects their record. So yeah, I don't think they'll be the one seed. I think as when LeBron gets AD back, you said they're in cruise control, but maybe those two will want to prove a point to the league, saying, no, we are still the guys in this league. We still run this league. I could see that easily happening. The Clippers had a little blip, but off that win against the Warriors, and maybe making some moves coming up to the trade deadline, maybe could also make a push to that first seed. And as you said, the Suns, who just look extremely consistent right now. So I see the Jazz falling out of that one seed for sure. And we were talking about them, as I said earlier, having one of the best win percentages in NBA history. So not the hottest of takes, but I'll say a lukewarm take, at least. Josh, do you want to move on to your final hot take, or do you have anything to add about the Jazz?
Nah, nothing to add. Just keep on the Jazz slander.
For the Jazz.
No complaints. Yeah.
Not for the Jazz. If they want to work with me in the future, I'm sorry, but
yeah, just your fans.
Yeah, just your fans.
Love the organization.
Yeah.
My final bold prediction is that Karl Anthony Towns will finally have enough with this poverty franchise, and he will request a trade.
Yep. I see it coming.
We haven't had it yet. We haven't had a player, that big player. Well, what am I talking about? James Harden right at the start of the season. But
probably like the biggest in like the last 10 years.
But the next superstar to be done with his franchise will probably be the most justified player in this
for
era.
Sure. Yeah.
In this era of players wanting out and taking a hold of their destiny, has there been a more justified case than
Karl Anthony Towns
leaving the Timberwolves? I mean, at every stage, they've just made very questionable decision making.
Yeah.
Obviously, they took a player. Their personnel, like who they've decided to choose in different situations. Anthony Wiggins over Jimmy Butler. They stuck onto him a little bit too long.
Yeah.
And then they cashed him for, obviously it wasn't the worst idea to get D'Angelo Russell if he was there, and him being a friend of Karl Anthony Towns, but it just hasn't worked out. And then
drafting Jarrett Culver as well.
Yeah, drafting even
Anthony
Edwards. Anthony Edwards isn't a terrible pick, but it's just about like the fit of it, and just taking a player so similar to, Andrew Wiggins in like just the. I mean, the week of the draft, he was saying that basketball isn't even his favorite sport, which is that's what you want to hear from a player that you're committing your future to.
Yeah.
And they're just absolutely terrible. They currently sit at 8-29. I mean, they won their last game, so good for them. But they're 1-9 in their last 10. And hey, I mean, it's good consistency though, because they're 4-13. They're 4-13 at home and 4-16 on the road. So it's consistent there. They don't seem to care about which building it's in.
Hey, if there's one thing you can't say about the Jazz, I'm not the Jazz. Sorry, Jazz just always on my mind.
Rent free.
Yeah. No, if there's one thing you can't say about the Timberwolves, it's that they're not consistent, because they are consistently awful. For like 15 years.
One glimmer of hope was they were able to snag Malik Beasley in the last from the Nuggets towards the end of last season, but now he's he's on house arrest right now with his situation there. We won't go into that.
And then D'Angelo Russell's out for a long time, requiring surgery. Another guy they committed their future to as well.
And normally a team this far towards the bottom, 8-29. Let me look at the East really quickly. As bad as the East is, even they don't have a team that's still in single digit wins. As bad as the Timberwolves are, you'd be thinking like, oh, let's tank, let's get the best pick possible. But can you even trust the Timberwolves with their track record to make the right decision in the draft?
No.
They've had so many number one picks wasted on them.
I think the only two times they've hit is Garnett and Cat. And those two players like 20 years apart.
And they're like no-brainer picks. Maybe with Garnett, it was a bit of a gamble because he was coming out of one of the first players out of high school. But, Cat there I remember that draft, and there was no one saying that it wasn't Cat. Yeah. So, just not much needs to be said. It's a poverty franchise, the worst franchise in the league.
Can we just liquidate the Minnesota Timberwolves and just move them to like Seattle or something?
Look, you can't be a poverty franchise and be in Minnesota as well. Like, you gotta pick a struggle.
Pick a struggle.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta pick a struggle there.
Imagine you cut like you're like Malik Beasley or something. Yeah, just
Oklahoma wouldn't even exist the Thunder wouldn't even exist anymore if they was as bad as the Wolves.
Yeah,
they would have just moved them straight back.
Yeah, imagine you're Malik Beasley, right? You're coming out the arena off a 40-point loss. You have to shovel like 6 inches of snow off your car just to get home. Get in your car, and you see a text. You're on house arrest for the next month. Sorry, mate.
Because I remember KCP when he a couple seasons ago when he had to play with like an ankle bracelet and he could only play at home games.
Yeah. But that does beg an interesting question though. If they do trade Cat, what do they do with D'Angelo Russell?
That is the only part of my thing that I made it clear to say that he will request a trade, but I'm almost certain maybe they'll feel bad for him because of everything that's going on in his life and just want to spare him from he doesn't even have. That's the worst part. He doesn't even have basketball as a distraction because his team is so trash.
Yeah. I'm sure he has like very little good memories associated with Minnesota. Anthony Towns.
Yeah, maybe playing with like
Jimmy Butler
or Garnett for that short period.
Yeah,
but like that has to be it. Or draft night. Draft night was probably the best time the best moment he's had with the Wolves.
Hey, what are we saying, Minnesota? How about we throw you Wendell Carter Jr. Who else? Otto Porter and a first-round pick for Anthony Towns. What are you saying to that?
Is that going to rival a package of Isaiah Roby, Kendrick Williams?
What about Pokusevski?
Nah, he's untouchable, man. He's I mean, you could take Wendell, but does he have a mullet?
You got me there. You got me there. Hey, why not add something even worse to Minnesota than the worst haircut in the NBA? When you're a Timberwolves fan, your team's down like 50 to the Lakers, and then you see Kenrich Williams coming off the bench with his haircut. I'll just be shaking with anger. But in all seriousness, though, I think a team like the Bulls or a young team like that who could realistically make a package for Karl Anthony Towns. Like I don't
Bulls
see...
would be an interesting situation.
Yeah,
legitimately, they have the package if he specifies he wants to go there, and if they actually, the Timberwolves
great friends with Zach LaVine as well.
Yeah, the Timberwolves probably won't let go of like the only positive thing they've had in the last 20 years too easily. But
every team has a price though. Every team. Yeah. I think they would probably demand one of Lowry Markkanen or Kobe White if a deal was to be made.
I think they're gonna they might ask more than they've asked than any big trade we've seen in like the last few years.
Yeah,
because you've got a player that not only is his potential high, but he's already that level.
Yeah,
so he would demand more than a James Harden, more than a Anthony Davis.
All right, let's move away from Karl Anthony Towns and go on to our last hot take of the episode. I think the Dallas Mavericks are headed up in the right direction and will clinch the 5 seed in the West come the end of the season. They currently sit in 8th. They're 7-3 in their last 10. So it shows an uptick in their performance because they started the season really disappointingly. And a large part of that, I think the main difference as to why they're so much better is because of Kristaps Porzingis.
Pingus himself.
Yeah, Tingus Pingus. First half of the season, obviously missed the first 9 games with that. Was it a knee injury he sustained in the bubble? Missed the first 9 games. And then when he came back, he was kind of awful on both ends of the floor for the first 2 months. He had the second worst defensive rating amongst rotation players in the NBA. And for someone who's supposed to be a paint protector, rim protector, that's like god awful. So that wasn't helping them at all because the guy you expect to be your defensive anchor is not doing his job. So they were just getting outscored pretty much every game, and he wasn't shooting too well either when he first came back. Obviously, he's grown into that and is actually being really quite efficient now. But in his last 4, going into the All-Star break, all 4 games that the Mavericks won, coincidentally, he has an 103 defensive rating, which is so much better. And it's not even elite, but just the fact that it is better shows that the Mavericks are only a healthy and fit Kristaps Porzingis away from being a real contender. Not a real contender, but someone who can be competitive in the West. Maybe they're away from
resembling their run last year.
Yeah. So if Kristaps can continue this, which his recent play kind of suggests he can, and he's been on a hot streak offensively as well, because there's a lot of questions regarding his future, hasn't there? People saying maybe trading for Andre Drummond. But
that would be a terrible trade.
I personally think trading Kristaps Porzingis would take the Mavericks a step back. So
keep definitely not get the value that he's worth.
No, for sure not. Because Kristaps, his upside on both ends of the floor is tremendous. If you get him healthy and get him in the right mindset. And it looks like they're starting to do that. Mark Cuban is starting to do that with him.
Yeah. And we tend to do this thing with generational talents like Luka Doncic, and it ends up, backfiring in some ways as well, because it kind of seeps into the mentality of the organization as well, is that when a player shows, how special they are right away, we kind of rush their winning window, like Luka is in his 3rd season and we're already,
exactly. Yeah.
There's people calling for him like, oh, he's having a disappointing year. He's doing this. He should be the MVP. We're like Luka's trash because he's not the youngest MVP of all time. Yeah, and we do this with a lot of players.
Yeah, people don't realize there's a lot of factors that go into winning the MVP. It's not just your own individual performance. If you don't have, the winning around you, you're not going to win the MVP. Simple as that. I was seeing takes on Twitter like it was like stuff we thought would happen at the start of the season that hasn't happened. It's like we all thought Luka Doncic was an MVP, and it was like laughing emojis, but he's playing at MVP level, but he just doesn't have the winning around him. If the Mavericks were in a top 2 seed in the West, that he'd for sure be like one of the favorites.
Yeah.
So that argument's a bit ridiculous, but this Mavericks is
that's just what happens. First you're the darling because you're that rookie that surprises everyone.
Yeah.
And then they hate you the next year. And then
when you set that bar for yourself, a lot of expectations are placed on your shoulders, and you got to remember it didn't take. No, it took like Jordan 6 seasons to get past the first round of the playoffs, didn't it?
Zion's currently the most disappointing. 26 point per game, 7 rebound, 60% from the field,
4th youngest player. NBA All-Star ever.
Most disappointing. He's overrated. It's crazy.
Yeah, we always talk about this though. Like NBA fans seem to be very impatient. Like you got to give young players time, man. Like coming out of college when you're playing with other teenagers and young adults is a lot different to playing against actual adults. Fully grown men. And I was listening to JJ Redick's podcast this morning with Nikola Vucevic, and he was talking about how when Vucevic first got to Orlando, he crossed over with JJ Redick for a season, and who was the other guy? I forgot his name. It might have been Aaron Aflalo, but he was saying like how much they helped him understand, what it's like to win, because obviously those Magic teams had just been to the Eastern Conference Finals with Dwight Howard and stuff. So they were telling him like what you need to sacrifice to win and how much it can take. And you don't just learn that by just playing basketball and by
That's
just
tough
dribbling the ball.
Because I just saw a graphic, I think by StatMuse, that Vucevic has like the lowest plus minus in the league since like 2013.
Really?
Yeah.
Just this season?
No, like
in NBA history, like throughout his whole career.
Over those years since then, which is wild to me. But yeah, and currently this season as well. But that's not all on him. But yeah.
But yeah, I do expect the Mavericks to be right in there and competitive at the top. And we'll see if they can repeat what they did in the bubble last year, because although they didn't get far, they did produce us with some good moments like that Luka Doncic game.
They were Porzingis' injury and suspension away from winning that series to me.
Yeah, against the Clippers, 100%. And can they build on that? Hopefully, I'm praying to God that Porzingis can stay healthy, not just.
Yeah, they deserve They need a season. It always seems like since they execute that trade that they're always just waiting for him to get back healthy. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's kind of in that tier like with Paul George.
It seems like the Mavericks and the Nuggets are those 2 teams that are just on the verge of just exploding almost and becoming real contenders. And yeah, I think a big part of that is Porzingis' health and the way he performs on the court. He's going to be so important because, I don't think there'll ever really be a question mark over Luka as long as he can stay healthy as well, which he's shown so far throughout his career. So that sounds good, but it's just Porzingis really. Anything to add, Josh, before we go?
No, I agree. Yeah. There's just certain teams in the league where, as we've talked about before, whether it be injury or it be, a slow start after advancing far or being in the bubble anyway, because not many teams are even in the bubble. And they're starting to get their footing again at this point and, still got half a season to go. So, and playing. So, yeah, they definitely look like a team that's going to trend upwards.
It's going to be a very intriguing second half of the season. And we'll be here every step of the way to cover it all for you.
Can't wait to cover it.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Four Court Talk podcast. We'll be back sometime next week. Thank you all for listening. We're out. Peace.